Yeah.
For our second part here. So where we left off, what were we talking about again?
Um, what were we talking about?
We were discussing. I'd asked you the question about when you were younger.
Oh, that's right.
You know,
Yeah.
anxiety and depression, and just being an awkward kid and all that kind of stuff. And I think you had gone off on another tangent there towards the end of it, but we had been
Right.
discussing. The question I asked you was, do you think that your awkwardness and all that kind of stuff played a role in your drinking? You said it did. Um,
Yeah,
do you
definitely.
think that the depression played a role in it as well, and the anxiety?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, man. It all went, together, hand in hand. It all went together,
Yeah,
I was drinking for an array of different reasons. Anxiety, depression, awkwardness, just, all that type of stuff. Addiction and that stuff, they go hand in hand,
yeah.
they really do.
So when you started drinking, you said that you started when you were 17, and really started ramping up, I guess, when you turned 21, because you were, of course, at legal age to really start drinking. Um,
Right.
how much, like when you first started, if you wouldn't mind just kind of like talking about how you started off, like how much you started off drinking, and kind of like lead us into towards the end of your drinking career, and like what that entailed, like how much were you consuming towards the end. But I really want to hear your timeline and how you kind of ramped yourself up and where you ended up at the end of it, and how much you were actually drinking at the end of it all.
So at the beginning, uh, it started off pretty innocent, like, of course, I got drunk off shooters for the first time, but that kind of transitioned to beer, going to parties and drinking beer and stuff. And when I turned 21, I was a beer guy. I was a six pack guy. I thought that was all I needed, and that lasted for a little while, but of course that doesn't last very long for a real alcoholic. And so yeah, man, excuse me, sorry. I have a nicotine pouch. But anyways, yeah, so I started drinking beer, which I think a lot of us kind of start out with beer, and then after a while it kind of transitions. But I kind of have a memory of the first time that I had to stop drinking beer because it just wasn't doing the right thing for me anymore. It wasn't getting me to where I wanted. I was up to drinking a 12 pack a day. So I went from 6 pack a day for, I want to say, maybe 4 months. I was doing that pretty consistently. Then that changed into a 12 pack, and it was very, very fast that the 12 pack turned into a bottle of liquor. It was very fast. I want to say maybe like 2 months of me drinking a 12 pack, and that was no longer good enough. It wasn't getting me to where I wanted to get. And so I started to purchase the shooters. And at first I started out with, like we talked about, the fireball shooters, because that's what I was used to going to parties and stuff first time I drank. So I naturally just started drinking those. And it started out with, like, four turns into six, six turns into eight, eight turns into 10. And then now that alcohol, that wasn't strong enough. It wasn't doing enough for me. So I had to upgrade. And that's when I transitioned into drinking Southern Comfort 100 proof, which is the nastiest drink on earth, man. It is so gross. It is, but it had a lot of alcohol in it. It would get you drunk. It would do the job, especially for an alcoholic. So I remember I started drinking those, and I started drinking, you seen those 99 proofs,
Hmm.
uh fruit drinks, what I'm talking about?
Yep.
I started drinking those as well, just again because they're super strong alcohol content. And I was good with about 7 or 8 of those every single day. But of course, man, and I thought for a long time that it's like, I'm never gonna get worse than this. This is all I'm gonna be drinking. Well, of course it got worse.
Yeah.
That eventually turned into about 10 SoCo shooters every day. And then the sickness started, man. The withdrawals finally started to catch up with me. All the damage that I'd done to my body started to catch up with me. And it would take me like 4 or 5 shots to even start to get a buzz. And so I started to purchase entire sleeves of shooters. And really, that was my go-to. That was my go-to towards the end. A lot of the times I would drink more because I get like two sleeves instead of one. I might drink a sleeve and then drink a couple more. But really, my steady number on a day-to-day consistent basis would have been a sleeve of the Southern Comfort 100 proof shooters there at the end. Um, like I said, though, if I had the money to get more, I'd be drinking more. I mean, there was nights that I drank 18 of those things, I mean, insane, 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 insane. I know that I've had alcohol poisoning more times than I can count, man. Uh, but yeah, probably like about 12 to 15 of those things every single day was the worst of the worst that I got to.
Were you drinking
Because
beer
of the
on
money.
top of that as well?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. You got to add the beer in there. But I
Yeah,
couldn't even drink the beer unless there was I'd have to get about 3 or 4 shots in me, and then I could drink the beer
yeah.
because my stomach would be so sick, man. I just could not. I couldn't drink it. I couldn't hold it down unless I was already intoxicated. So yeah, just an array of drunkenness, beer, shooters. If I could get my hands on a bottle, anything, man. It didn't matter. I would drink anything. If there was wine, okay, I'm going to drink the wine. If there's, I remember I there was nothing left in the house except for maybe you've seen them before, like the frozen margarita drinks. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
There was a bunch of those in the freezer left over from a party, man. This is again only somebody who's an alcoholic would do something like this. And I remember I took them all out of the freezer and I melted them and I poured them into a cup and I just started chugging, man. I just started chugging and chugging all that sugar and stuff, man. I got so sick. I almost ended up in the hospital because of that. But again, I had nothing else, and I wanted to, I wanted to keep my madness going. So yeah,
There,
about 12 to 15.
there was a point in my drinking career where they sell those like Mike's Hard Lemonades, but they sell the Mike's Harder Lemonades. And I
Right.
think they're like 9% alcohol or something, and you can buy the cans of them at the gas station. They're like a 16-ounce can, and you can
Right.
get all kinds of different flavors and stuff. And towards the end of my drinking, man, I was buying those and then filling up my glass with vodka, and then I used that as a mixer because
Yep. Yep.
I didn't want to pour anything that would dilute my liquor. So I
Alcohol.
was pouring another alcoholic beverage that was super high test to begin with, on top of that to flavor the vodka, and then drink that. And
Yep.
just
Man,
insane.
I I know what you mean. I would once I had a couple drinks inside of me so I could hold, the rest of it down, I would actually chase the shooters with beer.
Yeah,
So I totally can relate to that. I would chase the shooter and then I would try and chug the beer as fast and hard as I could.
yeah,
It's like, are you kidding me right now? We're chasing alcohol with alcohol. I
yep.
mean, that's how bad it gets. And I wanted to say this as well to everybody. Uh the mental space and the physical space, man, when you are caught up in your addiction like that, and I know you can relate, it is hell on earth.
Oh, absolutely.
Hell on earth. Every day that you wake up, it's like you're waking up into a nightmare again. That's how it felt. It felt
Yep,
like every single day of my life, I was waking back up and everything restarted. All that, everything I did, all the chaos that I did to get my alcohol the day previous, well, all that's gone and everything is restarted now. All the problems are there. Plus, you're going through severe alcohol withdrawal. It was hell, man. Hell. Towards the end, absolute hell on earth.
I can absolutely agree with you, man. Just the feeling waking up every single morning and going, I can't believe I did that again last night. The
Yep.
way that you felt and like the anxiety that will come along with it, especially the next day when you wake up and then knowing that you had to like go to work, and the amount of
Oh my
anxiety I would
God.
have because I felt so horrible knowing I
Yep.
had to go to work and work a 12-hour day, feeling like that. And then, what's the first thing that I would do? Go mix a drink, have to have a couple of those first, just to kind of get the shakes to go away. And then next thing you know, I'm driving to work. And not to mention, who knows what my BAC was just from the night before. There was
Exactly.
so many
Yep.
mornings I'd wake up the next day, and I mean, I could smell the liquor on myself,
Yep.
and I would go
Still
to work, and
intoxicated.
people would say to me, man, you reek of booze. And it was always, man, that was from last night, whatever. And the thing that's really crazy about it, and I forgot to mention this when we were talking about the fireball shots, I had this idea in my head that if it was like if either the cinnamon shots or like peppermint schnapps or something like that, but it had to be, of course, like the really high test peppermint schnapps. But I would drink
Right.
those going, it smells fresh. So I'm drinking something with cinnamon in it, or I'm drinking something with peppermint in it. But I'm thinking to myself, people aren't going to smell this because it smells like peppermint or mint, and that's so
Right.
ridiculous. Because of course
They
the
can still
alcohol
smell it.
smells like alcohol. It doesn't matter if you brush your teeth or
Oh yeah.
not. That you're
Oh yeah.
steeping the stuff out of you, man. It's coming out of your pores. You're exhaling
Oh,
out your breath.
I would smell like a distillery, man. I would smell like a distillery when I was drinking like a fish. I would smell so bad, and I can relate to that as well. I remember deep inside of my addiction, man. I was trying to hold a job. I was going in and out of jobs, losing jobs, and then I'd get a job for a little bit, then I'd lose it, then I'd get a job. And I remember I got a job at Home Depot, and of course this didn't last very long. I was probably there for a couple months, and I remember one of the ladies that I worked with one day, she came up to me and she's like, I'm just going to be 100% honest with you. She's like, what is that smell coming off of you? She's like, you smell like a bottle of liquor. And of course I lied, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. I played stupid. And she was like, well, I think I know what it is. And she looked down and she pointed down at my pocket. And I looked down and there was a shooter
Oh
hanging out of my
no!
pocket. Yep,
Wow.
there's a shooter hanging out of my freaking pocket. And she's like, not going to tell anybody about that, but you might want to put that thing away. And I remember I started walking off and she grabbed my shoulder and she was like, you might want to think about getting some help. And I was like, damn, but that's where I got to. There was no way that I could work or function in life whatsoever without the alcohol. Um, I know a lot of people can relate to this, but I went through severe alcohol withdrawal when I stopped. I mean, I got the worst of the worst. A lot of people don't realize this, but delirium tremens is when you hallucinate from coming off of the booze. I would shake, I would puke, I would hallucinate. I mean, there was times where I thought that people were coming to kill me. I mean, this is how bad it got. And I don't think that not every alcoholic gets the worst of the worst withdrawals, but man, I couldn't even have a conversation with somebody normally if I wasn't intoxicated. That's how like mentally you know what I'm saying? Like that's how
Yeah.
messed up my body and my mind was, is that I'd be so scatterbrained and all I would have is on my mind is how sick I am and I need that alcohol. I need that alcohol. So there was no doing nothing. A lot of my friends and family back in the day, they'd be trying to get me a job or something. And I even told them at that time that it's useless. As long as I'm drinking, there's no point in any of this.
Yeah.
I'm going to end up losing the job and it's going to be right back to where it is again. And I don't think I said this, before. I do not realize, or I don't think people realize how deadly alcohol withdrawal is. It's usually what kills the alcoholic is the withdrawal.
Yeah.
It's powerful stuff, man. Powerful stuff.
Well, there's only two substances that can actually take your life, and that's benzodiazepines and alcohol if you stop them abruptly. And that
Yep.
brings up another point too, because you said that when you were in rehab that they had you on Ativan, and I just want to bring this point up just because um, it's strange how different substances affect each of us so differently. Because
Right.
when I was in the hospital, the first time I got sick, I went through medical detox. And I was in the hospital for a little bit over 2 weeks. The first time that I got pancreatitis that I knew that I was diagnosed for, and after I was in the hospital with that bout of pancreatitis, I could look back and I had actually had pancreatitis probably like 10 times before that, like not joking. And I just suffered through it at home. I would quit drinking each time, but that's off
Right.
topic. But the point is that while I was in the hospital that first week, they had me on medical detox and they had me on that Ativan. And you said that it didn't really affect you that much. I absolutely have no recollection of that first week of being in the hospital while I was on that particular substance, that Ativan. 'Cause
Really.
it just had me like I didn't know what was going on. I was so out of it. My wife came to see me. My wife actually got really upset and got into it with one of the nurses because she's like, "What is wrong with him? He's intoxicated right now." Because my wife said I was slurring my words. I didn't, I seemed like I was drunk, And
Right.
it was that now I don't know what else they might have been giving me. I just know that one of the things they were giving me was Ativan, but it
Right.
totally had me out. Like I didn't know what was happening, and it's
Yeah.
crazy how
Yeah.
it affected me like that. But for you, you said it really didn't even do much for you.
No, it didn't. It only did but so much for me. It calmed the withdrawals down, but it really, I was always asking for more. It was like it wasn't really making me feel that much better. And the nurse was like, "We've given you a lot, and of course they think that, since I'm an addict, all I was trying to do is just, oh, I'm trying to get super high. And that really wasn't the case, man. I really wasn't feeling it. Like I
Yeah,
was in a lot of pain and stuff. And I have just such a bad rap though. Like no doctor believes anything I say. That's what happens when you become an alcoholic, man. It's like they will not prescribe me nothing because of my history with alcoholism. It's been really hard. Like, I broke my foot some years back and they wouldn't even really give me any medicine for my foot being broken because they're like, "Oh, well, you have a history of alcoholism and so we don't want to do that for you." And so that's just another thing that it complicates in your life, if it gets into the medical field or whatever.
did you ever play around with pills or anything like that? Was that something that you did
No,
in the past?
I never really did. There was a time period where I got some Xanax, and I did that, but there was like I did like 3 or 4 pills and never touched the stuff again. Um, Really, my main thing that I've struggled with has been the alcohol.
Yeah.
I've had other things be presented to me and everything, but I've known for a long time how much of an addictive personality I have. And so when other drugs and stuff have been offered to me, I've just kind of said no.
I never ever. That's one of the things I mean, uh, I've taken prescription medications when they were prescribed to me from a doctor, but that's one thing I never played around with. I just never did. I never had
No,
any interest in it.
no, me
I
either.
anytime the dentist would do something and he'd say, like I had a tooth go get abscess one time. I told him I don't want that stuff. And
No.
because I was afraid of the addiction, which is so crazy because I'm sitting there thinking I don't want to get addicted to that when I was already an alcoholic during that period of time, already.
Right,
And
right.
my
Yep,
method of I'm gonna kill the pain was I went home and
booze.
just drank, and
Yep.
what's funny is alcohol actually is a really, really good painkiller.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
If you are any kind of injury or anything, if I ever hurt myself, I just got drunk, man. I didn't feel anything after that, it just went away.
No, no, yeah. It was a great numbing agent as
Oh,
well.
absolutely.
Not only for your emotion, but also for your physical, pain too. I can totally relate to that.
Yeah.
Anytime that I would get intoxicated, pretty much all my physical elements would kind of fade away.
Yep.
Even though they're an illusion, they would, quote unquote fade away.
Well, that's another one of the allures to it, I mean, there's so many things that, I hate to say that it can help with, but I mean that's kind of the case, but it's a double-edged
Right.
sword at the same time because while it's fixing this one ailment you have, it's creating another one. And
Yep. Exactly.
I never really had a really big problem with anxiety. I did have a lot of depression, um, maybe a little bit of anxiety, maybe social anxiety, but not just
Right.
like just regular general anxiety disorder. I just didn't have that. But the alcohol created so much anxiety for me, especially the next day. I would be so anxious in the morning when I woke up. I mean, it was debilitating how anxious I would get.
Oh,
And ever
oh,
since I've removed
100%.
it, no more.
You're, yeah, you're free. It's.
Yeah.
I can agree to that. It's like in a weird way, man. I have less anxiety than I think I've ever had in my entire life.
Oh, me too, man.
Isn't that weird?
It's
Like
really weird.
I thought that, coming off the booze, especially since I've kind of dealt with anxiety my whole life, I thought that it would, and it was worse at first, but now that there's been several months that have went by, I've noticed that it's like my anxiety just keeps getting better and better and better. The further that I get away from the bottle, I said this in one of my videos, man, and I think it's so true. Alcoholics and addicts, when we do put that drug down, when we do put that drink down, we become the best versions of ourselves that there is. You know what I mean? We become better versions than we ever were.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if it's because we've been humbled. I don't know if it's because we've been in the depths of just the darkness and now it's like I can appreciate the light again. You know what I mean? I don't know what it really is, but in my everyday life now, it's like I just want to be a helpful, good person. You
Yeah.
know, years and years of deception, years and years of lying, stealing, going behind people's backs, crying, heartbreak, just the absolute destruction that alcohol brings. And now looking at the other side of it, man, all I want to do is just be a good person. I just want to help people. Same as you, man. I want to bring awareness to this disease because I do not feel like enough people understand what we're really dealing with when it comes to alcohol.
No. I think one of the biggest problems is, and one of the reasons that I do the channel is I think the statistics are out there, and they don't call it alcoholism anymore. It's AUD, or alcohol use disorder is the new term for it or whatever. But the statistics are out there, and I don't remember what it is, but it's already a really high number. I think it was something like the last time I said it on my channel. I think it was like 2 million people in the U.S. It might have been actually more than that. It might have been 20 million. I can't remember the number right now, but it was
Right.
already a large number. But where are they getting the stats from? I think that there's
Right.
way more people that are suffering with AUD than people actually really know. Because there's so many
Definitely.
people that think that I don't have a problem. And once again, where are they
Definitely.
getting these numbers from? Are they pulling some survey from 1,000 people
Yeah.
and then
How
and
do
then
you get those numbers?
multiplying that percentage times the total population of the U.S.? Who knows what they're doing? But I just think, especially since COVID happened, I know so many people. When COVID began, they weren't that big of drinkers, and then after that, they
Yep.
really ramped up on their alcohol consumption. And I was just telling you this just the other day, and I plan on making a video about this. But the amount of it's alarming, the amount of women now that have liver disease. The
Yep.
increase is something like 200%, and that's scary.
Insane.
And
Very scary.
one of the reasons that the article was, that the one of the reasons the article was saying that they think that one of the reasons that it's happening is, that a lot of women, they have children, and that's kind of like a buffer to keep them, because they stop in that 9 months, and then
Right.
they would tend to not really go back to drinking really heavy after they had their kids, for lots of
Right.
reasons. Just being a mother in general, it's just not as much time. But the amount of women that are having children now is starting to decrease. And
Yep.
with that decrease in women having children, the increase in women consuming alcohol, I guess to the degree to where they're getting cirrhosis, has increased substantially, and especially since
Yep.
COVID happened. And you just don't see a lot of information about that out there. And there's just so
No,
many
you don't.
people who are suffering in silence, and they don't know where to turn to. They don't know
Yep.
what to do. They're afraid or either embarrassed to actually
Yep.
ask for help.
And,
And
and,
that,
and we see that on our YouTube channels, man. All the time. You see those people. Those people that are just terrified. They do not know where to turn or what to do.
yeah,
They're all over the place.
yeah, and
And
that's
I saw that firsthand, and I kind of brought this up to you when we were on the phone the other day. I was going to some AA meetings trying to get sober. Going through that several years ago, and my very first time trying to get sober, and I watched like the increase of like young women, just women in general, coming into those meetings and stuff. The meetings went from like 15 people to 30 people to then, COVID eventually happened and like the numbers increased by like even 30 more. And it was kind of mind blowing and actually pretty sad the amount of young people that were in those meetings. A lot of young, like you said, man, a lot of women, a lot of young, beautiful women are in there and they just have horror stories of their addiction. And it's, I've noticed it's getting worse. That's the thing. It's
yeah,
getting worse and worse. Statistically, addiction's like at an all-time high right now. Um, And I don't know exactly. I think it's the state of the world. It's like you said, I think that COVID kind of kicked it off, and people didn't really know how to react to all of it, and it started something. And it's like I feel like every other person I meet, man, has some sort of addiction issue with drugs or alcohol. You know what I mean? It's like there's just people are everywhere suffering. It doesn't take, you don't have to look very far to find somebody who's suffering from alcoholism, you know?
Well, it's not just that. The other day I was watching this YouTube documentary. I watch a lot of stuff about addiction. I mean, it's basically my whole recommended feed on YouTube is just addiction videos in general, because that's basically
Right.
all I'm constantly doing research for the show and stuff like that, and I'm very interested in it. And one of the things that we talk about alcoholism and all this kind of stuff in our country, and drug addiction, fentanyl addiction, all that kind of stuff. But another one of the really big ones is and you already brought this up, is like Xanax, and the
Yep.
benzodiazepines. And the amount of prescriptions that are going out to people in the United States is just staggering. The amount of
Oh,
prescriptions
it's
that they're giving to people, and there's this I can't remember the name of it, but it's like a acna acna ac I can't remember. It starts with an A, but it's a condition that happens whenever you stop usage of benzodiazepines after a really long period of time. So let's say like you've been
right.
on benzos for 20 years and then you stop. They had there were two women on there that had stopped their benzodiazepine usage, and they couldn't sit still. They were constantly shaking, and
Yep.
both of them took their own lives because of that. And it
Wow.
was just so sad because they
Wow.
couldn't deal with the pain that came along with it. And the doctors were
Right.
writing these scripts for these benzos, and they're only and one of the pharmacists on the documentary was saying, these if the doctors took a look at the actual prescription on the box, and what it says is that it's only for short-term use. But these people are
Right.
getting prescribed these medications, and they're on them for long periods of time, and they get so physically addicted to them and trying to get off
Yep.
of them. I've had friends of mine who have been on benzodiazepines for years. I had one really good friend who was on Klonopin for I think about a decade, and he told me that getting off of that was just the worst thing he's ever encountered in his life, and how
Horrendous.
horrible it was trying to get off of those substances. And it's not just alcohol. There's so many things that
There
people
is.
are addicted to, and there's this
Right.
idea in society sometimes, and I know for a fact there is because I've actually spoken to these people that it's like they I've known certain people that'll look down on someone who's a drug addict or an alcoholic and go, I can't believe that person, as they pop their third Xanax bar for the day that their doctor prescribed to them. And it's this
Yep.
idea of, well, my doctor prescribed it to me, so it's okay, and it's not that big of a
Right.
deal. But in reality, if you look at addiction's addiction. It doesn't matter what the substance is, who
Yep.
prescribed it, where it came from. If it's something that's controlling your life, you can't put it down and step away from it and not think twice about it,
No,
especially for a period of days. That's addiction. And there are
100%.
so many people in this country suffering in silence. And
Yep. Yep.
it's not just alcohol. There are so many different things that people can get addicted to. And I really believe that alcohol is its own entity in itself. But once again,
Right.
addiction is addiction, man, and
100%, man.
it's
A
it's
100%.
it's horrible.
It is, and that's the sad thing about it. Really, is that you have a bunch of people that are anxiety ridden. You know, they're stressed out. They don't know what to do. They don't know where to turn. And it's like you said, man. Everybody just trusts the doctor. Doctor knows best. So where do they turn? Well, they turn to their doctor. You know, and then they get prescribed pills hand over fist, and it never fixes their problem. It actually ends up making their problem worse because same as alcohol, man, Xanax is just a band-aid for whatever you're going through, you know?
Yeah.
And next thing you know, it's like you said, yeah, man, they're heavily addicted. They don't know what to do. Um, I said it in one of my videos that I think that honestly, man, every single human on earth is an addict. We're all addicts. It's just for whatever reason, we picked alcohol, we picked booze, or maybe somebody picked Xanax, or somebody picked heroin, or somebody picked, you know what I mean? Instead of maybe a regular person is addicted to, working or doing something positive. It's like, if you really take a step back and you look at people, we're all addicted to something.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, we're just that special breed of people that our addiction was alcohol. What we wanted was our alcohol, or our Xanax, or our hair, whatever it is. We're all addicts at the end of the day. And it's really just about, I mean, my heart goes out to the people suffering from like the Xanax addiction and everything, man. I can't really imagine. I I just watched on a podcast, the Joe Rogan Experience. Actually, there was a guy that was on Xanax for like 15 years, and he said it was the worst experience. Like, coming off it was the worst experience of his entire life.
Was that Jordan Peterson?
Not Jordan Peterson. It was actually Joey Diaz. You know who that is?
Yeah, I didn't know that he was on Xanax. I didn't know that.
Yep. But yeah, Jordan Peterson is another really good story about that. I mean, look at him, man.
Oh,
Super smart dude.
He's
Like,
still
and
suffering the consequences of his usage, and that's another one of those ones where he was prescribed by a doctor, and he's had to change his whole diet to a carnivore diet and all this kind of stuff in order to alleviate the symptoms that he has because of his previous usage on his benzodiazepines. And it was something that a doctor prescribed to him. It wasn't something that he was seeking out on the streets or anything like that, so it's, and like you said, anybody can have any kind of addiction. It could be food, it could be work, it could be sex, it could be pornography, it could be whatever. It could be candy, sugar. I mean, there's so many different things. It's whatever makes you feel good at the end of the day.
Yep.
And
100%.
And helps alleviate your stress levels or whatever it is. And it's one of those things, I've watched that show, My 600-Pound Life. All those people on there, and they eat in order to comfort themselves. I don't understand that addiction because I've never had an addiction to food. But I can understand the addiction to it. Because I'm an addict myself. It's just alcohol is the one that I'm addicted to. And
exactly.
I just didn't eat that much because I never wanted to eat, because I wanted an empty stomach so that I could drink on an empty stomach. Right back to what you were talking about at the beginning of this show. That burn that you felt the first time that you drank. You want to feel that. And if you've got a belly full of food, you're not going to feel that burn that goes all the way down into your stomach.
That warm, comforting feeling that you get. Exactly. And with Jordan Peterson, man, I wanted to bring up one more thing about him. I mean, I listened to him before, he got into the Xanax and stuff, and, super inspirational dude. What seemed like just a super put together guy. I mean, and look at how it affected him.
Yeah.
And my point is that, man, addiction does not discriminate. It does not care if you're rich, does not care if you're poor, does not care if you have 1,000 friends or one friend. It does not care. It affects us all the same way. And I brought up, I'm a big fan of Metallica. James Hetfield, being the lead singer of Metallica, he's an alcoholic. He suffered from alcoholism most of his life, and he's admitted that it's almost taken him down. So it's like, this disease is something that it doesn't care about. It doesn't care who you are. It's coming just as strong. If you got that little bone inside of your body, whatever that is that makes us the way that we are, if you have that, man, you've got to be careful. I'm careful about every single thing nowadays that I put inside of my body. I even have to watch myself with stuff like this. With soda, I have to watch myself with soda. I can only drink soda once in a blue moon because I know my addictive brain. I'll start drinking these things every single day in, day out, if I allow myself to. It's a constant battle. It's a constant thing that I need to be vigilant of in my life, because it's that quick and I could slip back down that road. That quick and I could be back into my old ways. It's like you said, man. It's not just drugs and alcohol. It's food. Pornography, shopping too much. Maybe you can't stop shopping. You're just wasting all your money. We get addicted to the things that make us feel good, and and it becomes a game of chasing that dragon. You want those initial feelings like that. I wanted those feelings that I felt that first night that I drank. I wanted to feel like that for the rest of my life. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like I was okay with like that. It's like, and I constantly, every time that I drank, I was trying to get myself back to that feeling again. And
Yep.
it was never quite the same. It was never quite the same. It really does become a game of chasing the dragon. And as you're chasing the dragon, you're not paying attention to nothing, man. You know, you're
No.
stumbling, falling. It's it's kind of like the old saying goes, you know, do not look in the rear view mirror, because if you are, you'll never be able to see what's coming in front of you. And that was me, man. I was too busy looking back here, tripping all the time, stumbling. And another good point about, and maybe you can relate, man, whenever I was caught up in my addiction real heavy, I was a total woe is me, sob story. My life sucks. I want to, you know what I mean? Like, I lived in my past
Yep.
every single time that I would drink. It was like I was teleported into the past, and I would sit there and just never move forward. I said that alcohol in one of my videos is like a time capsule, man. You start drinking, and the whole entire world is moving in front of you, and you're staying right exactly where you are, not moving at all. If anything, you're taking a few steps back, you know, as everybody else is taking a few steps forward in life. You just stay stagnant. And one day you wake up and you look in the mirror and you're like, holy crap, man, I'm, you know, 8 years older and I've been drinking for 8 years and I've done all this damage to my body. How did I allow this to happen? How did I allow this to happen?
You're so right, man. I've been talking about that for the past few days on my channel. You know, living in the moment and not looking at the past and not trying to look at the future, because the past is already gone, the future isn't here yet. Living in the now is so important, and it's something that I've really tried every single day, is to try to focus on right now, the moment that I'm in, because tomorrow's not promised, and the past is already gone. There's nothing I can do
No.
about that now, and just living in now. But at the end of the day,
Yup.
I think, just to kind of sum this up, because I'm going to go ahead and stop this here in just a second. But to sum this up, basically this segment of this conversation is, you know, we've talked about all these different addictions and things. At the end of the day, it all boils down to one thing, and it all boils down to dopamine. Uh,
Yup.
Dopamine is
Yup.
the actual drug that we are all seeking. It doesn't matter what substance it is, but we all get a
Yeah.
dopamine rush, whether it be alcohol, benzos, food, pornography, gambling, shopping, whatever it is. You get that dopamine
Yup.
rush in your head, and that's what you're seeking. You're constantly
Yeah.
seeking that dopamine high, and it doesn't matter what it is, but that
No.
is what it boils down to. The root cause of all addiction, I think, is that alone, is the dopamine rush. But let's
100%, man.
let's go ahead
A
and end
hundred
this
percent.
segment right here, and I'm gonna go ahead and